I'm Mary, sitting here in the quiet room of the police station, my heart still pounding as I recall the series of events that led me here. The solemn-faced police officer in front of me is waiting intently for my statement. I take a deep breath and begin to recount the terrifying ordeal that started when I was just 8 months pregnant. It all took place at my parents' luxurious mansion. My husband, Daniel, and I had driven there for a weekend visit. The house was grand, filled with expensive antiques and modern art on the walls, all bought with the money from my father's successful law firm. My mother was a socialite, always concerned about appearances and keeping up with the high society crowd. My sister, Isabella, was 28, a spoiled and self-centered young woman who had never learned the value of hard work or empathy. As soon as we arrived, Isabella was all over me. She had just gone through a messy divorce from her rich husband, Jason. Supposedly, she was left penniless, but I suspected she was hiding a fortune somewhere. She cornered me in the foyer and demanded my credit card for a shopping spree in Paris. "Mary, you're loaded now with Daniel's tech startup money. Just give me your card. I need a new wardrobe to get back into the social scene," she pleaded, or rather, demanded. I refused firmly, explaining that Daniel and I were saving every penny for our soon-to-be-born child. Isabella's face twisted with anger. "You've always been so selfish. You think you're better than me just because you got married to some tech genius," she shrieked. I tried to walk away, but she followed me up the stairs, still ranting. Then, as I reached the 5th step, I felt a sharp pain shoot through my back like a bolt of lightning. Isabella's perfectly manicured hands had pushed me with force, and I was tumbling down the carpeted stairs like a helpless rag doll. Time seemed to slow down. I counted each impact, 6, 7, 8, before landing at the bottom. My left ankle was twisted painfully beneath me, and I could feel something warm and wet spreading across my maternity jeans. Looking down, I saw the blood, and a whisper escaped my lips, "Oh my God." The baby. Isabella, still at the top of the stairs, shrieked, "Stop being so dramatic, Mary. You practically threw yourself down those stairs." I couldn't speak at first. The cramps started immediately. The pain was unlike the bruising. This was my baby, the result of 4 long years of trying and 3 heartbreaking miscarriages. This was the one who had made it past the first trimester, past all the scary milestones. My mother appeared from the kitchen, a silk handkerchief in her hand. She took one look at me at the bottom of the stairs and sighed, as if I was an inconvenience. "She's being dramatic again," Isabella said as she slowly descended the stairs, stepping over me like I was a piece of trash. I barely touched her. I managed to say, my voice shaking, "Mom, I'm bleeding. I need to go to the hospital." The baby. My father's voice came from the study, where he was probably working on some high-profile case. "You're fine, Mary. Isabella is going through enough with the divorce. She doesn't need your attention-seeking nonsense right now." Attention-seeking? I was 8 months pregnant and bleeding. Anger cut through my fear, and I shouted. She pushed me down the stairs because I wouldn't give her my credit card. Isabella, examining her nails, replied, "She tripped. Pregnant women are so clumsy." My mother then knelt beside me, but instead of helping, she leaned in close. Her breath smelled like champagne, even though it was only mid-morning. "Apologize to your sister, Mary. You know how stressed she is. Jason took everything from her." I was in disbelief. The blood was spreading, and the cramps were getting stronger. I needed to save my baby, but my mother was more concerned about Isabella's feelings. I said, "I need an ambulance." Mom insisted, "Apologize first. We don't deal with conflict in this family. We just keep the peace." But I knew it was all about enabling Isabella and gaslighting me into thinking her violence was my fault. I looked up at Isabella, at her smug face and the slight smile on her lips. She knew she had one. Just like when she scratched my car in college because I wouldn't let her borrow it for a party, and I had to apologize. Or when she told my ex-boyfriend I was cheating when I wasn't, and I had to make amends for making her feel insecure. Tears of pain and anger welled up in my eyes, but I said quietly, "I'm sorry." Isabella, enjoying my humiliation, prompted, "For what?" "For making you angry," I gritted my teeth and continued, "and for being selfish with my credit card." My mother patted my head, saying, "Good girl. Now we can move on." That's when I made the call. First, I called Daniel. "Hey, baby," I said clearly, "I need you to record this call. Then call 911 to my parents' house. I'm 8 months pregnant, bleeding, and just fell down the stairs." Daniel's voice was full of panic. "What?" I continued, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I was pushed down the stairs by Isabella, and my parents are refusing to call an ambulance until I apologize to her, which I've just done." "Are you recording?" "Yes, I'm recording, and I'm already in the car." "I'm calling 911 on the other phone," he replied. I turned to my parents and Isabella. "Mom, Dad, Isabella, would you like to add anything to the recording? Maybe explain why a pregnant woman bleeding at the bottom of your stairs isn't worth an ambulance call." The room went deathly silent. My mother's face turned white, my father finally appeared in the doorway with his briefcase in hand, and Isabella's smug smile disappeared. My mother whispered, "You're recording?" "My husband is. He's been recording since I told him I was pushed down the stairs. And the security camera in the hallway probably caught it, too," I lied. "There was no such camera, but they didn't know that." Isabella quickly said, "I didn't push you." "Tell them I didn't push you." "But you did," I said simply. "And I have the injuries to prove it, the blood to prove it. And most importantly, I pressed a hand to my belly as another cramp hit. Whatever happens to this baby is on you." The sirens were already audible in the distance. Minutes later, the EMTs burst through the door, and Daniel was right behind them. Daniel took one look at me, at the blood, at the way I was holding my belly, and at my family standing around doing nothing. I saw a fierce look in his usually gentle eyes. He said coldly to my family, "Step back. All of you, step back from my wife." As the EMTs worked on me, checking my vitals and asking about the fall, Daniel was documenting everything. The stairs, the blood on the carpet, the distance from the top to the bottom, and my family's positions in the room. One of the EMTs said urgently, "We need to transport immediately. Possible placental abruption." Those words were like a knife through my heart. Placental abruption, life-threatening for both me and the baby. Daniel said, "I'm coming with her." My mother reached for her designer purse, saying, "We'll follow." I said firmly, "No, you won't." As they loaded me onto the stretcher, I caught Isabella's arm. She tried to pull away, but I held tight. "If something happens to my baby," I said quietly, so only she could hear, "I will make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Every single person in our social circle, every potential employer when they Google your name." For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. The ride to the hospital was a blur of pain and prayer. The emergency C-section happened so fast that I could hardly process it. But then, I heard a small cry. My daughter. She was alive. The doctor announced, 5 pounds 1 ounce. She'll need some time in the NICU, but she's a fighter. I sobbed with relief, and Daniel's hand squeezed mine tightly. Our daughter was early, but she was here, despite everything. The next day, when I was stable and my daughter was breathing on her own, I made the second call. It wasn't to my family, who had been bombarding my phone with a mix of concerned texts, accusatory messages, and guilt trips. I called the police department. "I need to file a report for assault on a pregnant woman," I told the officer. The officer who came to take my statement was very thorough. She photographed my bruises, took copies of my medical records that showed the emergency nature of the delivery, and documented the extent of my injuries: 9 stitches in my head, a badly sprained ankle, and bruised ribs. She asked, "Your sister did this?" I confirmed. She pushed me down a flight of stairs while I was 8 months pregnant because I wouldn't give her my credit card. The officer then asked, "And your parents witnessed this?" I explained that they saw me bleeding at the bottom of the stairs and demanded I apologize to Isabella for making her angry. The officer's pen stopped for a moment. I told her everything. How for years, Isabella's violence had been reframed as my fault. How my parents had enabled her and gaslighted me into taking the blame. She asked, "Will you be pressing charges?" "Yes," I said without any hesitation. My daughter almost died because my parents believed Isabella's feelings were more important than my baby's life. So, yes, I'm pressing charges. The fallout was immediate. Isabella was arrested at my parents' house, screaming about how I was ruining her life. "How could you do this to family?" she wailed. My mother called me, sobbing, saying I was tearing the family apart, and my father left a voicemail calling me vindictive and cruel. But the extended family, who had only heard Isabella's side of the story for years, got to hear the truth when the arrest record became public. Assault on a pregnant woman, reckless endangerment, and child endangerment for my daughter. My aunt called first. "Oh my God, Mary. We had no idea. Isabella always said you were jealous of her success," she said. "I know what she said," I replied, looking at my daughter sleeping in the NICU bassinet. "I've been listening to it my whole life." The trial was set for 4 months later. Isabella hired a high-profile lawyer with the money she supposedly didn't have for Paris. My parents put up their beach house as collateral for her bail. They showed up at every hearing, sitting behind Isabella, glaring at me like I was the criminal. But I had evidence they didn't expect. For the past 6 years, ever since Isabella had tried to claim I'd stolen her diamond necklace at a family party, I had actually found it and returned it to her. I'd been documenting everything. Videos of her throwing tantrums, audio of her admitting she'd lied about various things to get me in trouble, and screenshots of texts where she threatened me if I didn't do what she wanted. Isabella's lawyer tried to argue that it was an accident, but it was hard to claim that when I had a text from her an hour before the incident saying, "Give me your card or I'll make you pay." In the end, she was found guilty. The judge called it an appalling act of violence enabled by a dysfunctional family dynamic. Isabella was sentenced to 20 months in prison and 4 years of probation. My parents didn't come to meet their granddaughter until she was 4 months old and finally home from the NICU. They stood on my doorstep, looking older and smaller. "We'd like to meet her," my mother said quietly. I thought about it for a long time. Then I stepped aside. "You can meet her, but let me be clear. The first time you suggest she should apologize for existing, or that she should give up something to make someone else feel better, or that her safety matters less than someone's feelings, you're out. Forever." They nodded, looking chastened. As they cooed over my little fighter, I felt Daniel's hand on my back. "You okay?" he whispered. I thought about the girl I used to be, apologizing at the bottom of those stairs while bleeding. And I thought about the woman I was now, who had chosen her child over family conditioning, truth over false peace. "Yeah," I said, meaning it. "We're okay. Isabella writes me letters from prison sometimes. I don't read them. I just file them away with the rest of the evidence, because I know I'm breaking the cycle for my daughter. And if that makes me the family villain, I'll wear that label with pride."